You're tuned in to the Dakota Housing Network on Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. In-depth discussion and analysis of real estate issues nationwide and those issues unique to our area. Our team of experts includes Joe Sheehan, Greg Larson, Dave Floor, Brian Ritter, and a great variety of guests. The Dakota Housing Network begins now on Supertalk 1270 and supertalk1270.com.
This is Joe Sheehan, one of your local experts. Spelled with a small E and a capital T.
Dave Floor here also. I'm just glad to be included in that sentence that says our local experts include. And I'm in there. That's just astounding to me.
Like I said, when you go to the webpage, though, you'll see mine's with a little E.
Mine's a little E. Greg is a big E, and Brian is a big E.
Brian's a big E.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we're back. We were off last week, right? I was. I think you were too.
I was off too.
Yeah. We had Greg in here. What did Greg talk about, Jim?
What did he talk about?
I don't know. We have to listen to the podcast. I was gone.
All right, well, we'll find out. And by the way, supposedly the podcasts are up to date.
So if you want to find out what Greg talked about last week and whatever he had going on, go to 1270, Supertalk 1270. Click on, is it still mortgage? Or Mr. Ritter was here.
Mr. Ritter, yeah.
That's right. With Dot.
No, with the Downtowners.
The Downtowners. Okay.
Yeah, or call in at 663-1270 and tell us what was on our show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But go
great.
to Supertalk 1270. We have our podcasts are up to date. And is it still under Mortgage Talk 101, our old?
Yeah. That changed.
Okay, it's still under Mortgage Talk 101, but you can get the podcast for the Dakota Housing Network.
The Dakota Housing Network.
Okay.
All right, well.
All right. So what happened? What's happened?
Rates,
Mortgage rates and recommendations and everything going on here. What do we got?
They're going down. They're going up. They're going down.
Okay, well, let's just start off with the Freddie Mac survey. I've got that.
Freddie Mac survey.
I got that. Okay. The Freddie Mac, they do their weekly primary mortgage survey. It's a PMMS. They should maybe try something different.
For an abbreviation?
For the abbreviation there.
Sounds bad, doesn't it?
Okay. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 4.02% for the week ending June 25th. That was up from last week when it averaged 4%. So according to my calculations, that went up 2 basis points. A year ago at this time, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 4.14%. So actually, we're doing better than we were a year ago at this time.
Oh, yeah.
Super.
No, rates are great.
All right. 15-year fixed rate averaged 3.21, down from last week when it averaged 3.23. A year ago, it was at 3.22. So that's the 15 years actually pretty flat from a year ago. All right. So rates are still good. Although, now again, we always say Freddie Mac survey is a little bit behind. And this morning, we're having a little issue with Greece.
Yeah.
That's changing the mortgage picture, and I think there was pretty good jobless claims numbers, and consumer spending has been up, so that's kind of affecting rates, and they're taking a hit again today.
The Mortgage Market Guide stance has been locking pretty much every day here for the last couple weeks, and so if they're saying, if you got a rate you like, lock it in. Mortgage bonds continue to drift lower on the down escalator. So it actually, if you look at the bond chart, it actually looks like an escalator going down, and like step by step. And so that's what they're talking about. And when bonds are going down, remember, that means that rates are actually going up.
Yeah.
So Greece is still without a deal, but recent headlines reveal that European Union Council Donald Tusk said he feels happy. A happy ending will come.
Okay, good for Europe.
The markets know better about news flows, so seeing bonds unable to push higher while stocks hold their ground tell us that an agreement is coming.
Okay.
And an agreement is bad for interest rates, folks.
Okay.
An agreement will send interest rates up. Yep.
Yeah.
So a good deal for Greece is a bad deal for homeowners in North Dakota.
It kind of calms the waters of investment.
Yes, makes people feel very comfortable about going back into the market.
Yes. Okay.
In economic news, the May core PCE continues to show little inflationary pressure as year over year came in at 1.2%, down from 1.3% in April, and well below the Fed's target of 2%. Personal spending rose at its fastest pace in 6 years by 0.9%. And they were just talking about Dave.
Folks!
That's because Dave was on.
I was on vacation, so spending went up.
Right.
Darn right.
Versus the 0.7% expected and up from 0.1% in April as Americans spent on cars and trucks while spending more at the gas pump. Personal incomes rose by 0.5%, just above the 4.4% expected. it's tough to see the Fed raise interest rates in the face of 1.2% inflation year over year. So the good news for rates and all this is that inflation is low. And
Yes.
because inflation is the enemy of low interest rates. So right now, we also have Elliot Eisenberg's mid-year review.
Okay.
And he talks a little bit about what he thinks the Fed will do in regard to interest rates. But
the Fed now is not going to raise rates in June here. They had their meeting last week. No changes. There may be some tweaking of the language, as they like to do. Parsing the words, isn't that the right term? And now the expected date maybe is September 17th or whatever it's supposed to be, something like that.
I would hold out for December.
Yeah, I probably would too, because inflation just isn't moving anywhere,
Yep.
and that's what they're looking at.
Well, and here's the deal too, and this is the whole story. Sometimes I just said that I think that a deal for Greece is bad for interest rates. But now here's more perspective from Mortgage Market Guide regarding that. Hopefully, prices will bottom out on the floor of the nearest stair and move higher once Greece is officially resolved. But if prices break through the support at the nearest step, rates will move another leg higher once again. So the idea that they're contradicting what I'm saying, and I think even the way you feel about it. But that's if the Greece deal gets resolved. Well, then what will happen is initially that's going to be bad for interest rates. So like if you're talking about this week, I think it's going to be bad for interest rates this week.
Yeah.
However, once that's resolved, that gets taken out of the trading
it's done.
context. And what will happen is people will go back to dealing with the fact that inflation is only 1.2%.
Right.
That employment was up slightly, 1/10 higher than expected, but overall there's still bad news out there that'll eventually support interest rates getting better. And that's what they're saying is that basically long term, Greece gets resolved without rates moving any higher. And what will happen is there's enough bad news out there to potentially push rates lower again, but it's in the future.
Yeah.
So
And and you can argue whether bad news is a little bit of inflation that's below 2%. That's probably not bad news necessarily, but it all gets.
It doesn't support the market.
Any increases in it,
it doesn't support
it
doesn't support aggressive investment in the stock market. It
Right.
doesn't,
Yeah.
all those kind of things. So,
Yeah.
So coming up in the rest of the show, we got what do you got on tap for us?
We'll talk about Elliot Eisenberg.
Eisenberg's, yep.
Review.
We got some contradictory headlines about housing.
Oh yeah. Well,
More people are renting, but housing's surging.
Yep. And we have what? And we have a TRID delay. TRID delay.
Don't trid on me.
TRID delay.
I get
TRID
trid
delay.
on every day.
Jim,
And
have you ever had a TRID delay? Okay. All right.
sounds like more fiber.
And then I have a question for all the real estate agents out there. Should they drive around in fancy cars?
Fancy cars. Yeah.
Okay. All
Pimping
right.
ain't easy, but it's necessary. Yeah. And then we've got some market share data.
For local market
Local
share.
market. Lenders,
Okay.
so who's got what and where.
And we got Joe Walsh on the bumper music today as our theme for the day.
Back
All right.
after the break here on the Dakota Housing Network with Dave and Joe.
Currently, it's 70.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
Joe Walsh.
Welcome back to the Dakota Housing Network. Joe Sheehan.
Dave Floor. All right.
What
Joe,
happened to Jennifer Wyszynski? What'd you guys do with her, Jim?
for the weather lady?
I don't know.
We always like her.
Was it Megan today?
Yeah, we always like to hear her pronounce her name.
Jennifer.
Yeah. Joe, I have a question for all the real estate agents out
I
there.
do too.
667.
Where's my money?
663-1270. I have a question. Should real estate agents drive around in fancy cars? I don't know if they should or not. I have no idea.
What's a fancy car?
I don't know that either. But this was actually a question asked by somebody on the Realtor Reddit thread.
I mean, everybody can't
So
roll in
Reddit-
a 1972 Vega like I do.
Yeah, right. Reddit is that's like a Instagram, Facebook kind of thing, I think, or reader place. I don't know. Anyway, but a realtor They just got into the real estate business, and they were asking for some advice on the following Reddit conversation. I'm just starting out, and I have a decent but not great Buick Rendezvous. It's definitely seen 3 years of kids, dogs, and cargo. Would it be more advisable to put a little dollars into it to make it serviceable, or should I trade it in for a newer, classier vehicle? Would it make enough of a difference in my image, or can I make a newer car an investment goal for year 2 or 3? The consensus on the Reddit thread was that a fancy car is not a necessity. And what it turned out is you should actually make sure that your car is clean is probably the most important thing, and it smells okay.
I better than okay. I want better than okay on smell.
Yeah, I want good smell.
I want good smell.
And clean, I would think would be important.
Clean.
Yeah, what it is, I don't think anybody really cares.
And it needs to be reliable.
Yeah, you don't want to miss an appointment.
I don't want to be being hauled around with you, and we're broke down on 94.
Exactly.
On the way to Mandan.
So any realtor that wants to call in and tell us their opinion on this, give us a call, 663-1270. But I really don't. I would clean and reliable. Yes.
Do you need the crazy spinners and the low profile tires?
No. One guy wrote in on the thread. He says, I drove a rapidly rusting 20-year-old VOW Eurovan for my first 2 years in the business, and my clients loved it. Would still be driving it if the transmission hadn't gone out on it. Some
of it, I guess, could be how you play it.
A little unique, yeah.
Yeah, how you play it.
Exactly. So
I don't know.
So we'd love to hear from anybody.
I wouldn't necessarily want to show up in the rape van.
Yeah, the rape van. Well, hey, that's not a bad gimmick right there.
I might, no windows.
Yeah.
Come on in, no windows.
Well, the Euro van, they had the window. They had the windows all the way around. I think. Yeah. So that one would have been okay, but don't show up in the white van.
Yeah, the white van, no windows.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't
Mattress
do that. Okay. All right. So what do you got? We want to talk Elliott.
Yeah,
okay.
Real quick, and just so you know what we got coming update, we've got market share. If you want to know what lenders are doing the most business in town, we've got that. We're going to talk about. I got a bone to pick with Mr. Housing here.
Okay.
We got contradictory information on more people are renting and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Housing surging.
Housing.
Okay, so I don't know about that.
Housing buying is surging.
I don't know something. It says housing surging. Let's see. What is it?
Is it housing buying surging? I think it was.
Home sales.
Home sales are surging.
Finally surging.
But most people are renting.
Okay. So, all right. So what's Elliott got to say? Second half forecast for 2015. GDP growth the rest of the year should be average 2.6%, with growth in the quarter two closer to 1.7% as the economy slowly rebounds from a tough quarter one.
Ooh, okay.
And what was the problem with quarter one? Well, bad weather.
We heard that last year, didn't we?
Yeah, bad weather, rising dollar, and falling oil prices. The economic recovery remains intact. But poor performance of the U.S. economy from January through March was aberrant, and the incoming employment, housing, and service sector data all point to a modest economic pickup.
And the weather was bad in large parts of the country. It was not bad here.
No, it was not bad here, but it was tough.
Yeah,
Iowa,
Northeast was nasty. And
Despite falling energy prices, household spending has been very lackluster, and that's kind of that's been the problem.
Yeah.
A definite economic bright spot thus far in 2015 has been housing, and is due to rising household formation.
Okay. Wow. People moving out of mom and dad's basement. We've mentioned that before.
Yeah. So after averaging roughly 1.2 million annually from 1983 through 2006, household formation averaged just 600,000 through September 2014. Since then, it has been rising at an annualized rate of 1.5 million. Add to this increasing credit availability, and housing starts should reach an annualized average rate of 1.175 million during the second half of 2015, with new single-family construction contributing to the pace of 775,000. Lots of big numbers. Anyway,
okay, yeah.
Good. We know inflation's good. So what's this short? In short, Mr. Housing, the economy continues to grow modestly. Short-term rates will start rising in the fall. Wages are showing nascent signs of rising, and residential construction activity looks to strengthen as we go into 2016. Most critically, continued solid job creation will keep the recent rise in household formation up, and the likelihood of a recession during the next 6 months is 0.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Elliot,
And
I hope you're right.
slowly rising prices and wages, albeit from very low levels, will push the Fed to raise short-term rates late this year, probably in September, but possibly in December.
Okay, so Elliot's hedging his bets a little bit there. He says probably
But
September.
I'm saying December.
We'll go with December. I'll agree with you on that one. We'll see what our prediction is come September.
All right, so
Okay,
here's
how
my
we're
bone
doing.
to pick with you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Cruising the internet, looking for housing stories, trying to be up to date on all the latest and greatest stuff that's going on in real estate.
And why did we come up?
Survey says
Survey. Uh-oh.
states for helping people achieve home ownership.
Yeah.
Coming in at number 1. Nope. North Dakota coming in at number 2.
Uh-oh.
No. North Dakota coming in at a mediocre number 5.
Number 5 out of 50.
Falling down on the
I'm
job,
sorry, Joe.
Mr. Housing.
Sorry. Well,
Did
I
you
was
know about
gone
this?
for a week and a half. What the heck?
It was just a recent slide.
Yeah.
It was just I promised we were doing better. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was reading through this article.
Where's this from?
It was on MSN.
Oh, okay.
I didn't actually bring the article in.
Okay.
I just made a note, meant to bring it up to
Oh.
you that we're in 48 states. We're number 5 of the top 10 in helping housing.
Okay.
I was surprised to see some who number ones were because, in my I know during the crash, you were one of the last bond down payment programs still standing. In the country.
We kept operating all the way through the crash. Yeah.
Yeah, and that you were one of not even a half a dozen states that maintained that.
Right. Yes. Right now, I think we just actually looked at that. All the states, and there was 27 states that had done housing finance agencies that had done mortgage revenue bond sales in the last year. And we were one of them. We've done 3 in the last year. So yeah.
So anyway, maybe a story that we'll come back with later and look at and figure out how they're evaluating who's getting the most help housing and why. What I suspect is I suspect that because I know our housing program and I have done originating in other states before and I haven't seen a ton. I've never actually seen some really very good assistance. Unless it's done locally by municipalities, better than what we have. So what I suspect is happening, and we'll have to do some research to find out if this is true, is that one of the reasons why we're number 5 and not higher is because of prices.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so people aren't getting as much dollars.
They can't get the help.
Yeah.
Because the house prices put
That's
them
true.
outside the program.
Our market share has dropped because of
it could be that North Dakota doesn't have a program that helps people achieve home ownership outside the affordable housing ranges that are controlled by the government.
Right.
And that could be part of the issue because I know I was talking to Larry, one of the managers and a producer here, was talking about how he knows still in some of the states where there's still energy boom, housing is cheaper.
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
Wyoming, and that he was down there and still saw reasonable housing for under $200,000, and of course here reasonable housing starts under $300 somewhere. Still.
Yeah, the average home price sale price I think is like it's in the 230s, and in this part of the area it's up to like 260.
And still high in the West, where housing is growing exponentially faster in terms of rate of increase. And so I suspect that part of the thing that's holding us down in terms of that is in relationship to the housing, the housing assistance we're invested in. People don't qualify for it based on the house prices, and it's automatically.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of states have programs that give out a lot more money than we do at North Dakota Housing. You get 3% assistance is the most you can get, and other states will do much more than that. Wow. But there's reasons why we don't do that. Is we don't think everybody should get everything as a gift.
It's a North Dakota factor.
Put some of your money down, a little bit anyway. So
$500 at least.
At least $500.
Yeah, when he says put a little bit down, it's $500.
It's $500 minimum. Yeah.
So hey, back after the break here on the Dakota Housing Network, and we will talk. Who are the banks doing the most business?
Okay, that's a good one. And I've got something ties right along with that.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Currently, it's 70.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
And welcome back to the Dakota Housing Network here with Joe Sheehan and
Dave Floor.
There
That
we
was
go.
Megan Mulford on the
Megan
weather.
Mulford.
I'm sorry, Megan. I'm sure she's a lovely person, but her name is just not as much fun as
It's
Jennifer
not Jennifer
Wyszynski. Yeah.
I think she's still around.
She probably is just taking a day off.
Yeah, she's a fair weather
dare.
friend, you know.
How dare-
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, Joe,
Well, we got-
shocking news
shocking news.
that tied into your market share thing. here. This
Shocking
is
news.
terrible. I don't know.
What are we gonna do?
It's going to make your day, I think, because you're going to your
Throwing a party
market
later.
share. There is going to now be
It's
this
gonna be a
huge
Lollapalooza.
market share available to you and
Jamboree.
all your competitors to grab up, because Discover Financial Services is closing its mortgage origination business, Discover Home Loans, effective July 31st. It's going to Discover's it didn't meet their financial expectations, so they're going to focus on their profitable banking products instead. So Discover, no more on the home mortgage business. Yeah, I mean, you got to be just jumping.
Oh, we're so-
you're going to be doing cartwheels when you get out in the parking lot today.
When
aren't
I get
you?
all that Discover business,
Did anybody know that Discover actually did home loans?
I didn't.
I
had no clue. But it does go to say, actually, there isn't a reason to do a cartwheel over this, because one of the things that's really hard for people to comprehend is how much the business has changed, and the fact that somebody like Discover is not interested in the revenue being driven by mortgages is actually disconcerting.
Because they can't make any money at it.
If they can't make any money at it, if Discover can't make any money at it,
When they've got you with their credit card business
Yep.
and stuff, they've got you right there, and they can come after you as hard as they want to.
and this is one of those things where, folks, all over the country, people are trying to figure out how they're going to make money in the mortgage business. Since 2010, since the Frank Dodd Act, as we call it here on the Dakota Housing Network, since the Frank Dodd Act came into to play, I remember, we originated Little Heartland Mortgage. We originated about the equivalent of what 5 average loan officers' business would be on a monthly basis. I had 2 support people.
Yep.
Five loan officers, 2 support people. I now have more operations people than I have salespeople working for Cornerstone Bank. There are more people supporting the salespeople than there are salespeople
In 5 short years.
in 5 years, and that's expensive. And that's not the only expense being driven. I have twice as much or 3 times as much auditing going on. I have quality control at double the level it ever was. When I started with Cornerstone, when we sold the company to Cornerstone in 2009 or 2008, but really the first full year was 2009. It is incomprehensible the ratio of increased expense it has taken to run a mortgage operation.
Yeah.
And I just
So
when you're looking at the expense models that we're trying to justify, and at the same time, the level, the kind of people we need to work in this environment, because if you make a mistake, it's a big cost to make a mistake.
yes.
So you can't just hire people with no skill and throw them in these positions. It's on the servicing side. You can talk to that side. What's the impact been for you on servicing?
Well, fortunately, as a state housing agency, the CFPB decided they were going to exempt us from a lot of things because, number one, I mean, we're in the servicing industry. We're a tiny speck on a
you didn't cause a collapse
on a fly, and we didn't cause any kind of problems really. So they've exempted us from a lot of things, but there are some things that we're cognizant of. Now we don't know. Is the CFPB ever going to start looking at us? So we've tried to put the process in place that really to comply with what they're doing.
Yeah, you'd hate to have to all of a sudden catch up.
Right, exactly. So you don't want to have them say, "Hey, we're coming out to audit you," Oh boy.
Yeah, well, we haven't paid attention for the last 5 years.
Because you said we didn't have to.
Well,
but,
what do you think? What do you think? Just even that, even though you're not required to comply completely, what do you think the percentage of increase of expense would be in the last 5 years?
I would say 10% probably. And actually we're looking at, depending upon what we're going to end up doing here with some different things with like our RITS program and that. Yeah, we have to look at, do we need to hire a compliance person, because we're not necessarily going to be servicing just our loans. Right now we're servicing loans that we do MBSs for through Ginnie Mae. Mm-hmm. Ginnie Mae, because that's still, you're dealing with government-backed loans, FHA, so that's what you do is you service according to FHA rural development standards, which we've been doing for the last 30 years, so that's not a big issue for us. But if we get into more of the conventional side, if we sell some of our loans to, say, Fannie or Freddie on a more regular basis, or Federal Home Loan Bank in Des Moines, whatever it might be, we're probably going to have to up our compliance because they're going to want to make sure that those loans fit that. So
with the benefits package and everything.
I'm looking.
Talking it's $100.
Yeah, I mean,
$100,000 expense.
We might need to hire a compliance person just to deal with that. So
I mean, it's the cost. So the idea of there's one more competitor out of the market. That's not always a good thing when you have competitors dropping out, because it's just that much more expensive to do a mortgage these days. Everybody is doing more. For less return. No,
we were kind of got off topic here of market share, but would you say that if the Frank Dodd hadn't gone through or wasn't as onerous as it is on the compliance and regulation side, that interest rates would be lower today?
Yes.
0.5%?
Not only would interest rates be lower, but the costs would be lower.
The costs. And folks have to look at that. Interest rates are one thing, but then it's also how much does an appraisal cost? How much does the what are banks charging for fees, et cetera?
The price built into interest rates compared to before the Frank Dodd Act on what banks are making on the margin, that marginal expense is up at least 30 to 50%. Over the same margin we were charging, and that's just at the retail level. That's not at the delivery level. There's almost a quarter to a half a point increase in rates based on the Fannie and Freddie charges
fees,
that are passed on through the interest rate that people don't even know are there.
Yeah.
So if you look at the interest rates could be anywhere between half to 3/4 lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, people might say, well, boo-hoo, poor lender. You're not making as much money as you were. And I saw you with a fancy car, like that realtor, right? You got a fancier car than a realtor does.
Yeah, right.
And people might say, well, boo-hoo, you're not making as much money. The bank's not making as much money.
The loan officer might be making more money, or the loan officer may be doing well, but the bank is not. The question is, so for example, like, at some point, at what point is the risk worth letting that loan officer make a good living? You know what I mean? And that's what banks are going. But that's why Discover is getting out.
They might say, boo-hoo, poor lender or poor bank.
That's what the CFPB says. Boo-hoo.
But the fact is that all gets transferred down to the consumer, and it's just higher costs for the consumer in the end. And it's not something you realize.
Less competition.
Less competition. You don't realize it. You don't realize it because interest rates are pretty good and stuff. And you just don't think about that, but it could be cheaper today.
It could even be cheaper.
Interest rates could be less. Fees could be less.
Yep.
And that certainly adds in. Anyway, market share.
Who are the banks doing the most business in Burley, Morton County?
This comes from North Dakota Guarantee and Title.
Yeah, this is just a market report this is public data out of the mortgages recorded. Tied for number one at 13% market share for May, for the month of May, was Gate City and Starry Financial.
Okay, they're big lenders.
Tied number 2 is Dakota Community Bank and. Oh, no, that's just Dakota Community Bank. I had all other lenders here.
Okay.
All other lenders at 10%.
Okay.
So, tied for number 1, Gate City.
Starian.
And Starian.
Okay.
Tied at number 2, is Dakota Community Bank at 10%. Tied for number 3, Capital Credit Union and Cornerstone Bank.
All right.
Pretty proud of that.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Hey, and we're a new bank still in town. I mean,
basically,
to be third against those giants, I'm pretty happy with that. Number 4, American Bank Center at 6%.
Okay.
And tied for number 5 at 5% is Kirkwood Bank and Security First Bank.
All right.
So now so we got market share by amounts. Now I think this would probably. I wonder if this doesn't include home equities and everything.
Oh, I'm sure because they're just going off how
the total amount of mortgages.
Yeah, how many loans they've closed.
Just amount, dollar amount. So because number 1 is Bremer Bank with 14%, but they only had 1% market share.
Well, good for Bremer. They did a big one.
That's a humdinger. Or it's a lot of loans that aren't counted in this other.
Oh, I don't think that works that way, but they obviously did some big loans.
But that's a humdinger.
Right.
Like 2 loans.
Who said that humdinger originally?
I don't know.
That was like from.
But that is a
Hee-haw or something.
And Starting Financial is number 2 at 11%, okay. And then we have at 8%. We have Dakota Community and Gate City.
Well, that's interesting.
And number 4, Cornerstone Bank.
That's interesting.
So we're number 4 in amounts
by amount. Yeah,
which is pretty good for us because as you know, we're one of the top one of the higher producers in first time homebuyer loans.
Yes.
So we do a lot more smaller loans at my bank because we do a lot more first time homebuyer stuff.
Gate City's the same, and Dakota's the same, and Starion's the same. Yeah.
But so even though we're right. So to be in the top 5 in both categories, I'm feeling pretty good about that as far as my company goes. But
okay, so dollar volume. I think you're right. That would include home equity loans, which are going to be smaller also. Yep. So depends upon what you're doing.
So those are the people writing business in your town.
There you go.
I'm doing it. Well,
okay. All right.
After this, what's going on with home ownership? Is it up or is it down? Who knows?
And more renters, but home buying surging. Okay.
After the break.
Currently, it's 72.
Sean Hannity, weekdays at 2, only on Super Talk 1270.
All right, back on the Dakota Housing Network. Dave Floor, Joe Sheehan, and Jim on the board, and Joe Walsh.
Okay.
All right, Joe.
More Americans are renting and paying more as home ownership falls.
Okay. I'd be interested.
This is by Dione Searcy.
You know who we should get on? Again, is Rocky Gordon. To talk about rents in Bismarck, Mandan. Yeah, I'll make a call.
Let's see what.
So anyway, renting is going up, and they're paying more for it.
Right, but even as the market continues to improve, sales of existing homes in May increased to their highest pace in 6 years. The National Association of Realtors report on Monday, the first timers making up 32% of buyers is leaving millions of Americans unwillingly stuck in rental housing.
Okay. So, do you think people are unwillingly in rental housing in North Dakota?
Yes.
I think so because I think home prices are definitely gone up so much that the wages haven't caught up to that.
Yep, and here's what they're saying. In the past, many families like the McDowells who are in this story, whose household income is almost $100,000 a year, would already be nestled in a starter home, maybe even on the cusp of upgrading to something bigger and more expensive on the profits from their first house.
Mm-hmm.
But even as the market continues to prove, so that's the problem. It's more of the new normal. An economics professor from Yale University says, we went through a wrenching experience with the biggest housing bubble and the biggest collapse since 1890. This is an anxious time. So nation's homeownership rate has been falling for 8 years down to 63.7% in the first quarter of this year from a peak over 69% in 2004, according to a new report released on Wednesday by Harvard University's Joint Center of Housing Studies.
Because, I think most people would think if you're making $100,000 a year, and you wanted to buy a home, that you should be able. You shouldn't have a problem being able to buy a home with that level of income. But it is in some markets that is difficult. On
average, the number of new rental households has increased by 770,000 annually since 2004. The center's report said, making 2004 to 2014 the strongest 10-year stretch for rental growth since the 80s. Many of these people were once owners, Dave.
Oh, okay. So these are people that probably lost their home in the crash, and probably had a more income at that time and were affording something, and now boom.
Hardest hit.
Okay.
Hardest hit by this. People in their 40s and 50s.
Okay. So that indicate they were previous homeowners, maybe. Yeah.
Some economists see signs of a turnaround with reluctant renters. But
okay. All right. So
yeah. But now,
okay.
Interestingly enough,
another article.
Wealthier boomers are shunning homeownership.
Who said it? CNBC says this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, U.S. homeownership rate is the lowest level in 25 years and is widely expected to go even lower. That's not just a result of younger Americans struggling to make ends meet to save for a down payment on a home. It's increasingly the result of middle-aged, higher-income Americans choosing to rent. So there's those who are unwilling renters, and then there's the willing renters.
The willing renters, okay.
Renter growth is now at the highest level in 30 years. Families or married couples age 45 to 64 accounted for about twice the share of renter growth as households under age 35.
Okay, so
the biggest growth is in people older, not younger.
Maybe the perspective there is they owned a home during the crash, lost it, and now they want to remain flexible. They don't want to go back to that same issue if something would happen again. So they're willing renters.
Well, here's what Doug Duncan from Fannie Mae has to say.
Okay, Doug's from North Dakota, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or he went to NDSU.
He went to
NDSU. Yeah.
Did he go to NDSU?
It was NDSU.
Was it? Okay.
Yep.
We do think we are in the later stages of rebalancing between owning and renting. Fannie Mae, Chief Economist Doug Duncan.
Okay.
Duncan pointed to demographics. Baby boomers are now moving out of their home ownership years, while Generation X's smaller group, 6 to 7 million, also has a growing preference to rent after being hard hit by the recession, losing their credit and even their homes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, combination of folks just not wanting to own that are older and wealthier, and the middle sector not being able to, or not wanting to get burned again by the investment they made in home ownership in the past.
Yeah. Well, I you can understand that perspective on things too for somebody in that age and that have had that happen to them, why they would choose to continue to rent.
Yeah.
It's safer.
So, all that being said,
all right,
here's why home sales are finally surging.
Oh, they're surging.
Home sales are on pace for the best year since 2007.
Okay, so maybe a little perspective. It's just they're surging from lower levels, right?
Yep. First-time buyers are streaming back into the market. Prices are skyrocketing. So it's not your it's your youngers. It's millennials.
Millennials, all right.
The resurgence is a sign that the U.S. economy, after muddling through a sluggish 6-year recovery, has and remember the peak of home ownership was 2004.
Yep.
According to these stats.
Okay.
What we've seen is that demand is off the chart in 2015, and that is really boosting sales. The National Association of Realtors said Monday that sale of existing homes climbed 5.1% last month to a reasonably adjusted annual rate of 5.35 million. May was the third consecutive month of the sales rate exceeding 5 million homes.
Okay. All right. So there are homes that are available out there that maybe were previously being rented, and people are now deciding to sell them because prices have edged upwards. And we're talking, this is nationwide. Mm-hmm. So obviously this is happening.
That's why those boomers are finally bailing.
Yep, there you go.
The house prices are finally up. Let's get it while it's here, honey.
Let's get it out of here. But this obviously is driven a lot by the larger markets, the Californias and Arizonas, et cetera.
Absolutely.
So the homes are coming on the market, and these younger people are buying them. Now, once all those homes are bought up, though, now what's going to happen? Are the builders going to be able to keep up in these areas?
No,
and
everybody's
are they going to be willing?
That there'll be a shortage of new housing.
That's what I've heard.
Yet, about 32% of the homes sold last month were to first-timers, compared to 27% a year ago. Okay, very good. The improvement is substantial, but still lags behind the historical average of first-time buyers composing 40% of the market. So there is contradiction. I mean, so like when you hear, and this is your show. This is the number behind the number show of the Dakota Housing Network. Yeah. And so like it puts into context. Well, housing's surging, well, still behind though what the average has been. Yeah. In terms of, we are surging to below average growth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's surging from very low points here. is what you have to keep in perspective.
Imagine a coach getting up and going, you know what? We are on track. We are getting better every day. And at this rate of being the best we've ever been, we will have the best losing season we've ever had.
Exactly. Super.
This will be the best losing record we've had in franchise history.
That's pretty much it.
And we're proud of that.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
That's kind of where we're at. And so the information does sound contradictory, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
As housing is continuing to improve, it's continuing to improve though below what the averages have been and what the best numbers have been.
Yeah. So do you think there's been talk in the past about how, people thought, I can't own a home. My credit score is not good enough. I got to have, a super high credit score. Mm-hmm. I can't save money for a down payment. All that stuff. Do you think some of this stuff is coming out in the news? There's been a lot of stuff on. No, you don't have to have a 800 credit score to get a house. You don't need 20% down. You can get into a house. That's probably helping on that with these younger buyers to some extent. I think the word's getting out there. I think improved employment on younger buyers who didn't have employment anyway. Right. Because remember we talked about males being between the age of 20, 25 and 32 being the highest unemployment rate in the country. Yeah. I think you're probably seeing employment there. So their girlfriends are finally going, hey, you got a job, we can get a house now. I think so you're seeing that, and I think on top of that, lower fuel prices. Yeah. Okay. And so, but here's what they say: employers have hired 3.1 million additional workers in the past year. Unemployment's down. That's one. Secondly, mortgage rates are affordably low, and the Federal Reserve prepares to keep key interest rate low. And there's good paying jobs in a lot of parts of the country, because I think that's where the job growth has been is somewhat. There's a lot of high paying jobs that are unfilled. People need to be trained for them, but I think people are going out and getting that training. So that's good news for buying homes, because obviously you have better pay. And the other thing is that you just said prices are getting higher, so people are feeling willing to put them out on the market, which is creating opportunities for people to buy existing houses. Boy, I had an insight and I didn't even know it. Many economists caution that the sale gains for recent months could be short-lived, and if prices continue to increase so sharply, buyers will get priced out of the market. Yeah. And the recent rise won't take long. Right, could also curtail sales, and a rise in mortgage rates could curtail sales, and so that's the whole. Yeah, okay. So, but anyway, so educate yourself. You don't need an 800 credit score, right, Joe? No, you need. It's work with a lender where the questions are free. Yeah, you don't need 20%. Answers are free. Yeah. Answers are free. If you're not working with a lender where the answers are free, then move along. But there are plenty of lenders out there where the answers are free. Yeah, and you know what? The Wells Fargo did a survey on home ownership, and one of the things they said. Customers said when they're ready to buy a home, they want a high-tech experience, which Discover probably offered because it was all online, right? Yeah. Okay, but they want it combined with a human touch. Right. So go to your loan officer, because that's what you want. You want the human touch. The human touch is more important than the high-tech experience. I'm going to tell you that right now. Especially with this. It's like buying a car. Yep. You want a loan officer that calls you back. Yeah. You want a salesperson. You want to talk to them, et cetera. So anyway, I think Jim's telling us to get out of here. Get out of here. Thank you for tuning into the Dakota Housing Network. Day 4. And Joe Sheehan. We'll be back next week. We're back next week. More numbers behind the numbers. All right.
ABC News, Super Talk 1270. Accurate news, stimulating talk. This is KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck.